Hi, Tragon Turner here, Technical Services Manager for Nelsen Corporation. Welcome to another edition of Tragon's Tuesday Tech Tips. Today, I'm going to demonstrate how to do a typical service on a Nelsen Water Solutions softener valve. Today we're doing a softener, but as far as like the piston and the stack assembly goes, the process will be the same for a filter valve as well as an AIO. So as with any system, when we're going to do maintenance on it, the first thing we want to do is we want to bypass that system and relieve the pressure off the system. The way you do that is once you have the system in bypass, you just press and hold the regen button to initiate a backwash. And as soon as it goes into backwash, within a couple seconds, pressure is going to be off the system. You'll know this when water stops running to drain. Once you have pressure off the system, we can go ahead and start our service on the system. And we'll go ahead and remove the cover by pulling either of the tabs and popping that cover off, giving us access to our drive bracket. When we're doing service on the valve, we always want to go ahead and unplug power at the valve. There's no need to unplug it from the wall. We'll unplug the power and we'll unplug the meter. We always want to unplug the power first, and we always want to plug the power back in last. We're going to remove the wires from their guides, and I'm just going to hold them over the back of the valve so they're out of the way so we can access the drive bracket. And then next thing we're going to do is remove that drive bracket. There's two tabs here, one on either side, and there's two finger pulls here and here. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our thumbs to lift the tabs, our fingers to pull the finger pulls, lifting up on the tabs, pulling the finger pulls, releasing that drive bracket. We're going to lift that drive bracket up and out and remove it and set it off to the side for service. So now we have access to our drive gear, our drive gear and our main drive cap. This is where we're going to need our handy dandy Clack multifunction service wrench, and we're going to use this to remove the drive cap. Always want to just put that on there, and then we're going to turn it counterclockwise. You can see I'm using my forearm for extra leverage here. This one's on there very tight, as it should be. Once we get that nice and loose, we can probably take it off the rest of the way by hand, giving us access to our main piston, our brine piston, and then our stack assembly. You can tell this one's been in there for quite a while because the stack assembly actually came out in pieces. Typically, we can just pull our stack assembly out and we'll get it ready for replacement. Set these off to the side. I'm also going to be replacing the main piston and brine piston today. The way that we remove the main piston from the drive cap is we want to turn the white gear counterclockwise, releasing that piston from the recess, and then we're going to just pop that piston off. On this one, you can actually see the connection and we can just pop it off. A lot of the times, especially if there's any iron involved, you're not going to be able to see that connection. The way to remove the main piston at that point is you want to hold your palm flat and you just want to roll this piston across your hand while applying downward pressure. And when it gets to that connection, it's actually going to pop itself off. Don't press up too hard or you'll send this flying across the room and then have to go find it. So now that we have all that out, we're going to go ahead and inspect the inside of our valve, make sure that there's no debris in there. You can always give it a wipe out with some paper towels or a cloth. If there's any iron buildup in there, you can wipe that out. And then we're going to go ahead and put our new main piston on. You can notice that there's a horseshoe-shaped connection in there that lines up with your drive cap main piston here, main piston rod rather. And you just snap that on. Once you have your main piston on, we're going to turn that white gear clockwise, just enough to get that piston down in the recess so we don't accidentally knock it off while we're servicing the valve. We're also going to be replacing our brine piston. Same sort of connection, horseshoe-shaped connection, locks onto the piston. Just find the top of that horseshoe-shaped connection, lock that in, and now we're ready for putting our new stack assembly in. New stack assembly. If you tuned into last Tuesday's tech tip, we talked about having issues with brine draw. and we left off where we had to pull the stack assembly out. So if you're having issues with brine draw and you get to the point where you have to inspect your stack assembly, the portion that you're going to inspect for the brine draw is going to be the cone portion here. There's 2 O-rings in there, and you're going to want to look in there and make sure that those seals aren't torn or missing. You'll also want to inspect your brine piston for issues with brine draw, if there's any scratches on it or a whole lot of buildup where these seals have actually gotten expanded. We don't have a good connection between that and this. We won't have a good brine draw. So now that we're ready to go ahead and insert our new stack assembly and replace our drive cap, we're going to put it in. We're going to tighten it by hand as much as we can. Remember, we're tightening the drive cap, not the drive gear. You don't want this drive gear to be tight. The valve will do that when we turn it back on. We're going to tighten this by hand as much as we can. Then we're going to use our handy dandy service wrench to tighten it down all the way. Now don't be afraid to tighten this down as much as you can. You're not going to be able to over tighten this thing, and you want it to be really snug on that valve so we don't have any issues. What can happen if the drive cap is not snugged all the way down? If it's a quarter turn loose, you're going to end up having water flowing down the drain while in service. If it's more than a quarter turn loose, you can have water flowing to brine during service and drain during service. So we want to make sure that that drive cap is nice and tight. Now that we have our stack assembly and pistons replaced, we can go ahead and replace our drive bracket with the board on it. There's 2 legs here that correspond with these 2 legs here and here. You just line those up while making sure that that worm gear goes right through the middle here. We want to make sure that our wires aren't sticking out in front of the strain reliefs there. And then you just want to snap this in place. That nice loud snap is an indication that everything is fit and snug where it should be. You just want to run your power wire and your meter wire back through the guides here. You can plug in your meter, and we will plug in the power after we inspect our injector. The injector is located behind the drive plate, the back plate. It's right here. There's always a sticker on it indicating which injector you have in there. We can use our service wrench to break that loose, and then we can remove it the rest of the way by hand. This does have an O-ring seal, so there's never any need to really go ham on this and tighten it down too tight. And once we have our cap off, we have access to our injector and our plug. We always want to inspect the screen inside the cap, make sure that there's no debris in there. If there does happen to be debris in there, we can remove the screen just simply by pulling it out and then washing it out with warm water and a soft bristle brush. Put it back in, and it's ready for reinstallment. The way that we get this injector out is we actually use the lid, the injector cap rather, to pop the injector out. You'll notice that there's a little lip around the top of the injector, and there's a lip around the top of the lid. We can actually use that cap to pop that injector loose, and then we can take the injector out. We want to inspect it. We want to look through it, make sure that there's no debris in there, and that you have a nice clear path for the water to follow through the injector. If you can't see through the injector, it's clogged, replace the injector. Put the injector back in, push it down, put our lid back on, tighten it down by hand. Like I said, there is an O-ring seal on here, so hand tight is typically good enough. If you want to put a little bit of tightening, more tightener than hand tight, just give it like a quarter of a turn with your clack wrench. So that's pretty much it. You can do another step by inspecting your drain line flow control by taking off the red clip that holds our drain line in place, and then inspecting that drain line flow control. It should be clear and free of debris. We'll put that back on. And then at this time, we'll go ahead and plug our power back in. When we do that, it's going to initiate a soft reset. And it's this part of the cycles that actually tightens the white gear to where it needs to be, so we never have to actually tighten that white gear. As long as we've powered it up, there's no error codes or anything like that. We do want to go ahead and just initiate a regen and cycle it through the steps to ensure that there's no error codes or anything like that pop up. We'll press and hold the regen button. You can do this with or without the cover on. If you're doing it without the cover on like I'm doing, just don't press the button really hard. You don't want to break it off. We're just going to go ahead and bump it through the cycles by pressing that regen button. Once you see the timer start counting down, you can press the regen button again. We're just going to do that until we get all the way back to the home screen. Once you get back to the home screen and the time of day showing, we don't have any error codes. We've had a successful maintenance of our valve today, ready to put our cover back on. Touch base with our homeowner, let them know that everything went smooth, and be on our way. Thank you guys for joining.